Hello and welcome. It's 3 p.m. India time or 9:30 GMT, and the big story we are tracking here on WION this hour: the Chief Justice of Bangladesh, Justice Surendra Kumar Sinha, has been forced to flee the country. The top judge fled after a tussle with the Sheikh Hasina government over the 16th Amendment, which gives Parliament the right to impeach judges. The court had scrapped the amendment. The main opposition party, Bangladesh Nationalist Party or BNP, had cheered the decision, but the judgment riled the ruling dispensation. The Chief Justice now has fled to Australia, reportedly because of threats from the ruling party. Officially, though, the stand being taken is that the Chief Justice has gone on leave because of ill health. The Australian government has given Justice Sinha and his wife Sushma visas for 3 years. The elder daughter Suchona is based in Australia. President Mohammad Abdul Hamid has appointed Abdul Wahab Mia as the acting Chief Justice of Bangladesh. And joining me for more on this story is Bangladesh's WION's Bangladesh Bureau Chief Saad Hamadi. Good afternoon, Saad. Good to have you back on WION. What's the latest you're hearing about the outgoing Chief Justice, as it were? What prompted all of this?
Roman, there have been quite a few meetings going on between the ruling party politicians, the government officials, and the serving Chief Justice S.K. Sinha, who's now going on leave. The official notice that we've been provided is that Justice Sinha has not been doing too well and is going to Australia for his treatment, whereby he's been given a 3-year visa. Now, from the sources that we have gathered, we've been told that he has been dealing with an amendment in the Constitution, the 16th Amendment, which was pertaining to whether the legislature should have the right to remove judges or should it be in the discretion of the judiciary. And given that Justice Sinha has argued in favor of the judiciary's right to have this discretion on whether to remove or hire a judge, the ruling party politicians have been quite disappointed with him, and that is what may have triggered his removal, so to speak. Even though on record he's still there, he's going on a leave, but that's what many lawyers have been speaking about.
All right, Saad, do stay on while we're now joined by Professor Rakesh Sinha, who is described as an ideologue of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Good afternoon, Professor Sinha. Good to have you back on WION as well. What do you make of this latest development coming out of Dhaka, where we're given to understand that Chief Justice Sinha has been forced to flee the country?
Bangladesh has been completely subjugated by radical Islam. Whosoever may be the Prime Minister of the country, he or she can't defy the radical Islamist elements. You know, any blog writer, whether he's Hindu or Muslim, any moderate Muslim, is being either killed or he or she has to leave the country. And I think this was unacceptable to the radical Islam that a minority should be in judiciary and holding the highest position. And I think this is most unfortunate for Sheikh Hasina. If she wants to prove her credentials, she must retreat from that. She must ask him to come back and hold the position, because this is a completely democratic and secular justice for the Bangladesh.
Professor Sinha, may I ask you to stay on while I go back to my colleague Saad Hamadi, who is joining us from Dhaka. Saad, put this into context and perspective of viewers of WION who might not be familiar with the developments in Dhaka. What is it about the 16th Amendment that has triggered this controversy?
The 16th Amendment essentially discussed on whether the legislature, the Parliament, should have the right to decide on whether a judge and the Supreme Court should be removed or not. Chief Justice Sinha has been arguing that it's the judiciary's independence, and judiciary should have the right to decide and remove a judge if required. So this argument has been pertaining particularly to whether to give the political or politicians the right to decide on which judge to have in the Supreme Court and which judge not to have. Now, this argument has triggered for quite some time, and under which Justice Sinha has made a call on the fact that the judiciary should have that right to remove any judge if required. This disappointed with the ruling party politicians who have gone very vocal against him, saying that he must not be in the position in his capacity, and he must take his words back and revise the constitution for that matter. And in the process, as we have been observing in the last few months, Justice Sinha has not been very active in court and has been making moves to take a leave out of the office. He's supposed to retire next year anyways, but under the present circumstances, we get to hear that he's taking an early leave whereby he's going to Australia.
All right, Professor Sinha, if I can quickly come back to you before we let you go. For instance, in India, we know that parliamentary oversight exists on the judiciary. Parliament can impeach judges. But in the case of Bangladesh, as you were pointing out a little earlier, how will this issue impact on the Bangladesh politics going forward, especially in light of the forthcoming general elections, which are due next year?
I think this was intended to appease the Muslim radicals. And the government had been very passive as far as minorities should hold the judicial position, because she thinks that if she would allow the Hindu to be a Chief Justice of Bangladesh, then she would disappoint rather there will be anger against her. And I think Bangladesh is completely under the control.
Professor Sinha, if I can just interrupt you there, forgive me, but are you implying therefore that the religion or the bona fide of Justice Sinha may have something to do with it?
Yes, certainly. He is a Hindu, and I think both Pakistan and Bangladesh are now on the same pedestal. We hope that Bangladesh would be different from Pakistan, because India has a great contribution in liberating Bangladesh, and we have a great friendship. And I think India's secularism would make an impact on Bangladesh, but they are unchanged people. They are just like the Pakistani. In Pakistan, you know, no Hindu can hold any important position in Pakistan. Same thing is happening in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh has not learned anything from her own liberation from Pakistan. And Bangladesh is completely under the grab of the Taliban. I think this is a very dangerous symptom for the society of Bangladesh. 6% Hindus are there. They are feeling unsafe. You know that the Enemy Property Act has been imposed on Hindus, and they have been completely disempowered from their property. And most of the Hindus are either, and you know there are millions of Hindus who are declared missing Hindus. So they can't they accept a Hindu as a chief in a judiciary. And I think this is a litmus test for Sheikh Hasina. If she retreats, she restores his position, then it would be great for her. Otherwise, it would be considered that she is a very weak and coward prime minister.
Professor Sinha and Saad, do stay on. I'm now joined by Ms. Sara Hussain, a senior lawyer who joins us from Dhaka. Good afternoon, Ms. Hussain. Good to have you on WION. Now, there we heard Professor Sinha invoke the religious angle as it were to the whole controversy. From your standpoint, what prompted or precipitated this controversy in Bangladesh?
Well, I should say just on that communal angle that we did hear some very ugly communal statements, sectarian statements by senior officials of this government against the Honorable Chief Justice, saying things to him, saying that he should leave the country. I think it's absolutely disgraceful and condemnable in the last few weeks after he gave this landmark judgment to protect the independence of the judiciary, encroachment by the legislature, which was claiming a demand to be able to impeach judges at will. I think this conflict is about the fact that this Chief Justice has really stood up to the executive in a number of cases, both around issues of civil liberties and also critically around issues of independence of the judiciary. He has been in continuous conflict with them over the last few months around the issue of trying to restore independence of the judiciary, particularly most recently on the case where the court struck down a constitutional amendment providing for impeachment of judges by Parliament. The reason for striking it down was the fear that Parliament is so partisan and so controlled that it will act simply on whim of particular individuals. And what we have seen in the last few days, what has really, I think, shocked many of us who are in practice here, is the manner in which the Chief Justice has been treated, the comments made by the Law Minister, showing a letter by the Chief Justice written to the President, a private letter, supposedly about his being ill and needing to take leave. That letter has been shown by a laughing Law Minister in front of television cameras to journalists. It's been an absolutely appalling spectacle, and I think we are very much afraid of the situation that the court will face, and I really hope that the government will come to its senses and understand how it needs to conform. itself with regard to the judiciary, if it needs to be taken at all strictly as trying to attempt to have some kind of democratic purpose.
Right, Ms. Hussain, if I have understood and heard you correctly, are you endorsing the position taken by some in Bangladesh that there might be a religious, communal or sectarian motive to his ouster from the post of Chief Justice? Is that what you're saying, telling me as well?
No, I don't think there's a communal motive, but I do think that there have been some of the attacks and comments on him by members of parliament and unfortunately also by ministers have been very communal in that tone, where they have made comments saying he should leave the country. That is a disgraceful comment to make regarding a fellow citizen.
Right, and a quick follow-up question, Ms. Hussain. What is your reservation or the judiciary's reservation for having parliamentary oversight or giving parliament the right to impeach judges? What might be the judiciary's contention or objection to this issue?
It does not really conduct itself in a manner which is objective through discussion, debate and so on. Parliament functions in a highly centralized and increasingly highly partisan manner. We don't have an effective opposition. We don't have parliamentary debate. We don't have parliamentary process. And precisely what we are witnessing right now with what is happening with the threat to the Honourable Chief Justice, that is exactly what we're seeing, that a political party which is consolidated power is taking whatever action it wishes against whomever it sees as an enemy. And that is extremely frightening, that there are no independent institutions that can work to check this balance. The judiciary was that institution.
Right. Ms. Hussain, your point is well taken. I want to take that point across to Mr. Sandeep Chaudhary, a journalist who joins us now from Dhaka. Good afternoon, Mr. Chaudhary. What do you make, first of all, of this whole controversy of the ouster of Chief Justice Sinha? Also, as Ms. Hussain was pointing out, she feels that given the lack of a decent or a strong opposition and Parliament's conduct being suspect, it is best that the existing system be left untouched. Your thoughts?
Okay, well, first of all, I think we need to go to the fundamental controversy where it started. It started with the idea of separating the judicial, from the parliament. Now, the Chief Justice was pretty adamant about the fact that, the judges should have the right to impeach judge, and they should have the right to do so, rather than the parliament. That's where the controversy started, which the parliament rejected. The parliament said it's the parliament who appoints an impeached justice, right? Including the Chief Justice. Now, under the current system, the President actually impeached the Chief Justice, although it's usually a very superficial power of the President. It's usually the Prime Minister who will delegate this letter to the President that, impeach XYZ judges. Since then, there are a lot of comments made by Mr. Sinha, which were actually more conducive for the independence of judiciary, that kind of urged the ruling party parliament members. They weren't happy with it. The opposition was actually on the side of the Chief Justice. And after that, there were a lot of different kind of rumors about his personal life, about different things he did, which was really not substantiated. It was more of a rumor. And just a little while ago, as you all know already, your other guests already said that he was forced to, as far as a lot of paper goes and rumor goes, to take a leave of absence under the current system. But a lot of rumor is that he was actually forced to do so. He didn't want it to take a leave.
Mr. Chaudhary, your point is well taken. Do hold your thoughts. I want to go across to Ms. Sara Hussain, a senior lawyer again. Ms. Hussain, are you thereby implying that the judiciary has no faith whatsoever in the legislature? Are we heading for a collision course on this issue?
I think the judiciary is trying to assert itself. This is a major body blow. And I think as far as the citizenry are concerned, this is a very, very frightening development, because I think the judiciary has been a kind of bulwark against the speculative threat. And if a Chief Justice can be treated in this manner, there's not much hope for the rest of us.
Right. And what kind of precedent might this set, Ms. Hussain, very quickly?
I think it will make it very clear to people that it is very difficult to resist threats and extrajudicial threats which are made. to you when you are holding a constitutional office. Because what is happening is not something that is happening in any manner that will promote transparency or accountability. If there are allegations against anybody, they should be heard and known to people, and they should be dealt with in a public forum. But there are rumors, speculations, smears, personal attacks, character assassinations, and ultimately, I think a citizen who stood up for many of his fellow citizens from a position of authority is being treated in a completely disgraceful manner.
Ms. Hussain, do stay on if you will. I want to take that same question to Mr. Tanveer Chaudhary and my colleague Saad Hamadi, who is waiting patiently standing by in Dhaka. First to you, Mr. Chaudhary, what kind of precedent might this set going forward, especially at a time when elections are due in less than a year's time?
Well, I tend to agree with Ms. Farah Hussain, what she says. It's absolutely, impediment that the judiciary stays separate out of politics, and it, exerts its muscle as an independent body, because we look at the Supreme Court as the interpretation of Constitution and other very important issues. Current situation is making it too political, and people are losing their faith on the influence of the politics into judicial system. That has an unprecedented bad image, on the politics in the country towards judicial system. And the fact that a lot of politicians from the ruling party are maligning his name for no unreasonable reason is also a bad precedent. So it is best to let it alone, and people want transparency in this fact that whether he actually resigned voluntarily or he was forced to resign. That's the key question.
Fair point. I want to take that same question to you, Saad. Saad, some of the observations made by our guests, Ms. Hussain and Mr. Chaudhary, if I can just recap for the benefit of viewers and also for you, they seem to suggest that there is fear that there is no credible opposition in Bangladesh. The political party in power and the legislature and conduct and behavior is suspect, and they don't seem to have much faith in the legislature. And also the judiciary must be kept separate from the polity of the legislature. Your thoughts, Saad, very quickly.
Absolutely, Ramesh. Without an opposition, without an effective opposition, so to speak, it's very difficult to determine the neutrality or the objectivity of the parliament and the decisions that come through from the parliament. In any case, this decision in the 16th Amendment, as has been discussed, is in the right of the judiciary, so to speak, to ensure the independence, the four pillars that define the democracy in a country. The fact that judiciary has its own independence is quite contrary to what is on display in Bangladesh right now at this time. With this particular decision and the subsequent effect on Chief Justice Hasina and how he's moving out of the country, even though on official records, but then again it's quite understandable among the ruling politicians as well as the lawyers for that matter, who are saying that it's out of pressure that he's leaving the country and going to Australia.
Right. Sarah Hussain, Tanveer Chaudhary and Saad, please do stay on if you will. I want to quickly bring in Mr. Moin Khan, a leader of opposition from Bangladesh. Mr. Khan, welcome and good afternoon to you. What do you make of this controversy, and where does Bangladesh go from here?
The scenario here is extremely confusing. All of you are very well aware that our Constitution ensures three basic pillars which are independent of each other, and they are the legislature, the judiciary, and the administration, which is known as the executive. Unfortunately, the rumor here is that the judiciary has been encroached upon by the executive, thus totally destroying the independence of the judiciary. This kind of an insertion on the judiciary, so to say, the Chief Justice, is totally unprecedented, not only in Bangladesh, but I would say this kind of thing has not happened anywhere in the world, even in countries where the democracy is not functioning. So in that context, our whole democratic system has
Right, Mr. Khan, I take your point, but very quickly, your party is supporting the scrapping of the 16th Amendment. You're supporting the judiciary. What is your opposition, principal opposition against parliamentary oversight over judiciary? That's the case in India as well, where Parliament can impeach judges. What's your main concern on this score?
I fully understand your question. Unfortunately, somebody can oversee another independent institution when that particular institution is independent.
Right.
In our case, we have a parliament with 300 seats, out of which 154 have been elected without going through any process of voting.
All right.
Which implies that this is a parliament which does not have any credibility at all.